Hi, everybody, and welcome into a special conversation with West Virginia University Athletic Director Wren Baker. I'm Tony Caridi, and this report is brought to us by United Bank, united with the Mountaineers. Well, my friend, it has been an incredibly busy series of weeks for you. The long talked about potential realignment among college conferences has happened. Obviously, it's probably not for the last time all time because I don't think this will ever be over, but the Big 12 is gaining 4 new schools, in addition to the 4 that are already coming in this year. There was a Friday that I think will go down in history. If you could, give us as much insight as you would on those 48 hours, how everything happened so quickly. Was it exhilarating or was it incredibly stressful?
Both, really. You know, it was back and forth, and when you go through something like that, there's a range of opinions, and I probably have insight into more than the general public, but it was changing hourly and sometimes even by the minute. You know, probably the person at WVU that would be most knowledgeable, other than President Gee and myself, is Matt Wells, who drove me actually to meet Richard Adams at United Bank, and we were driving back. And a lot of those conversations were going on. So I told Matt, I said, "You're deep inside the circle of trust, my friend." But there were some twists and turns. You know, when you have a league like the Pac-12, lots of history, lots of tradition. We understood Colorado came a little earlier. They'd only been in the league for a decade. They had more history in this league. And so when you start talking about those other institutions that had been there for decades and decades, that becomes a more difficult conversation to have. But ultimately, I think where the Big 12 wound up was where we hoped to wind up. Those 4 corner schools we thought were the most logical acquisition. Not necessarily great for WVU in terms of geography, right, but certainly great for the Big 12 in terms of stability, in terms of market growth, in terms of picking up some very great tradition-rich institutions, which is great for WVU. Having the number at 16, that gives you 2 potential divisions of 8. It gives you 14 pods if you want to do some different things, scheduling to help with the travel, and we're going to look at all of those things. No decisions made yet, but the conversations have started. But if you think back to 2 years ago and what it looked like for the Big 12, and I wasn't at WVU, but I grew up from Oklahoma. I've always lived in Big 8 and Big 12 country. It did not look very good for the league. I probably would not have wanted to wager on the future of the league. And so to see where we are now, where I believe we're clearly in the top 3 most stable conferences in the country, you're starting to see for the very first time the television dollars out there. Those are getting constricted. And so making sure we could shore up where we're at and where we're positioned moving into the future was critical. And I think Commissioner Yormark, the presidents in our league and the ADs in our league were patient, wade through it. There were a lot of twists and turns. At one time on Thursday, I thought it was done. When I went to bed Thursday night, I thought it had fallen apart. And then Friday, it ended up happening. But I think the Big 12 is a big winner in this round of conference realignment, which is great for West Virginia University.
You mentioned the word markets. So with the addition of the 4 corner schools, now the Big 12 is in Denver, it's in Phoenix, it's in Salt Lake. How important is that, and what's that mean for the long term of the conference?
Well, the more time zones and markets, and especially brands in those markets that get a good reach, right? I was in a great market when I was at the University of North Texas, but we didn't really penetrate that market. None of the universities there really do. There's so many pro teams at such a large market. And so it's the combination of a great market. WVU is not in a huge market, but we have a strong market share. Every time they run the analytics of the most valuable, most watched properties, we're always in that upper third. And so it's the combination of what market are you in and how much can you command of that market. And when you look at those schools and the markets they're in and what they can bring in terms of eyeballs and subscriptions as it moves to that and all those things. That's where the real value is, and that's why this round of realignment, I think, will bear out very well for us.
Since those moves were announced, you also had, I don't know if they were scheduled or not, but last week you were in for more Big 12 meetings. What was the vibe as you all got back together for the first time?
It was great. We were there, and there's a lot of good-natured ribbing because the new schools were there, and so my colleague at Arizona State, Ray Anderson, got some teasing and might have gotten a bar tab or two thrown his way. We had it really was coming together for the first time. We had some agenda items to get through. The meeting was pre-scheduled, but with those schools that we obviously didn't know until a few days ago, they were going to be there. So gave us a chance to break bread together. And I would say nobody was celebrating the demise of the Pac-12, right? That's a very distinguished, tradition-rich league. I think all of us hate to see a league like that's in the condition that they're in as of this moment. But I think we were very glad to have them. They were very glad to be to have a stable conference situation, and so it just made a lot of sense. And so there was celebration, but in a way that was appropriate.
So we go to 16 now. As you said a moment ago, you could cut it in half and have 2 8-team divisions. You could use pod system. What would you like to see happen?
Well, just in a vacuum, I would love to see as much travel eliminated for our student athletes as we can. However, when you look at, let's just take football for instance, still to be determined what the selection and seeding process for the expanded CFP will look like, but undoubtedly there's going to be a substantial number of at-larges, and those at-larges are going to be determined by CFP rankings. Right. So when you just lock into divisions, you can hurt yourself. In other words, one division's champion playing another division's champion in a championship game may not be your 2 best teams. And so that could knock somebody out of a playoff spot, which is big for that institution, but it's big for the league in terms of revenue. So it would seem easy to just in a vacuum say, oh, we should play the 7 schools that are closest to us. But the reality is it is more complicated than that. But when you get into the Olympic sports, and those are the sports that aren't hopping on charter flights. They're going through commercial airports and all those things. It really, I think it would behoove us to for sure look at ways to cut down on travel with them. That doesn't mean we won't do it in football and men and women's basketball, but it is a different value proposition when you're hopping on a 7:37 charter and you're going to be home in a few hours versus you got to stay the night, get up, catch a 6 a.m., go through all these commercial airports and connecting flights.
Last question, give me a quickie on this one. What are you most looking forward to for your first home Mountaineer football game on the 9th?
Walking tailgates. I always have enjoyed doing that, just seeing fans celebrating with each other, building camaraderie, playing with their kids, enjoying themselves. May even sample a few delicacies. I'll stay away from the alcohol, but just because I'm on the job working. But I will definitely try some food and dessert. So I'll look forward to being out there with Mountaineer Nation and so excited to celebrate with our great fans.
You have never seen as many pepperoni rolls as you're about to see on tailgates.
You've never seen somebody eat as many pepperoni rolls.
He's in. That'll do it. Along with Wren Baker, I'm Tony Caridi. Thanks for being with us for this special conversation brought to us by United Bank.